Okay, I think the folks coming in have kind of leveled off. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Um, Once again, good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us on our training for check request mastery. It's going to be a step-by-step guide. For today, we'll talk a little bit about some changes that we've made to the check request form, the process, the comparison, or kind of the when you need a PO, if you will. We'll cover some tips and tricks for successful submission and get into a demo, and then hopefully have plenty of time for any questions you may have. Joel will be joining me. He'll be helping out with the demo in a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start, we have updated the check request form a little bit, not the form itself, but the qualifying items on the form. Prior to this, we had, I believe it was 40, approximately 40 qualifying items or categories, whatever you want to call it. And now it's been narrowed down to 28. So there's a link on our website where you can see the 28 items if you want to take a look. But some of the categories we added were campus community relations, which is for hospitality expenses. And then we consolidated various items into one since they were sort of along the same line. Anyway, there's changes there. So please check it out, and we'll go through it a little bit more as we go through the presentation. Um, but to start, what are the steps, right, for submitting a check request? So your first step is to review those qualifying items so that you know that it's on there, that you can process. Maybe it'll tip you off whether you need a PO or not. So start with the list. There's a link on the PowerPoint that you can click that will open up the document. It also talks about other documents you might need for that submission because depending on what it is you're wanting to pay, there may be something you need to attach to it. At minimum, probably like an invoice if it's some low dollar item that we're paying. If it's an honorarium, it could be, the honorarium form, maybe an invitation letter or an agenda, stuff like that. So definitely take a look. We'll show that probably a little bit later. Step two, you're going to complete the check request form. And that's where you want to have all of that documentation that I was mentioning with you so you can attach it. Step three, this is probably one of the more crucial. You got to verify that the approver, your signer, has a valid DOA on file. You can do that you can check via OBIEE. I think it was either accounting or budget had a course on that, on how to use it. So there's a tab on there you can check. But if you don't have it, if you go on there and you see that your approver is not there, then you would want to go onto the AEM inbox, and there's a finance delegation of authority form. So you can fill it out there, add the person that you want to add, and then you can submit your check request. This way it doesn't get delayed or rejected because you don't have the appropriate approver. With that is, do you have a new vendor, right? You might, maybe you want to update their address or something of that nature. Then you might want to add the vendor if you want to do so. Again, the hyperlink is there. You would follow that, send out the smart sheet. The 204 form will get sent to the vendor, and we'll add them. But as a side note, something to keep in mind is you don't have to hold the check request. You can go forward with it, and you should because you'll get a number, a DP number, and that number can be put into the check request smart sheet to move it along, to move the request along. Otherwise, you'll encounter delays. And then finally, you'll submit the check request to AP by downloading the final copy, it could be off of Adobe. There's a few ways to do it, but basically we're looking for the copy that has the form, your attachments, and the audit trail in the back. And then you can email it over to invoices@fullerton.edu. And we have the e-submissions guidelines there, so you can see what should be in your subject line. And we'll, again, go over that a little bit further in a minute. So what are the differences? When do you need a PO? When do you need a check request? I'm sure that's probably a question that many of us have encountered at some point or another. So it's a lot of things. To preface this, I kind of probably want to start out by saying it's probably good practice to think that you're going to need a PO rather than not. There are certain situations where you won't. Some of those are typically the smaller dollar transactions under 1,000. Um, it'll be like honorariums under 5,000, refunds of deposits. That's limited use, limited department use. Committee meals, refunds related to like parking or student business services, so student refunds. So that's like in a nutshell, right? But just because it's under 1,000 doesn't mean you'll never need a PO or you won't need it. So you should probably be in the habit of first looking at it from a PO perspective, possibly talking to contracts and procurement if you're not sure first, and then the check request. Of course, you can always ask us, but generally speaking, most of the time you're probably going to be leaning on a PO. But you should definitely consider POs when you're talking about purchasing, furniture that's over $1,000. That's total cost. That's including, installation, delivery, maybe haul away, film and video rentals, equipment, including computers. There's various limits and various other intricacies behind that. But equipment, anything that has a contract, some sort of agreement or a memo of understanding, an MOU, consulting services, specifically anything that has to do with chemicals or hazardous materials, software, and then your recurring and blanket purchase orders. There's more to that. There's a lot more detail that goes behind it. Again, if you're not clear, I do recommend reaching out to our partners at Contracts and Procurement. But these are like some general sort of ideas for you to keep in mind in case you're curious. But there's different reasons why you may need a PO, even though you think you probably don't. Like with computer equipment, sometimes it's just due to the sensitive nature of what it can, the data that it captures, that may require it to run through a PO because we need some additional checks. Consulting services, kind of same deal, right? There's liability. Usually with consulting services or contractors, like maybe speakers, things like that, where you would want to run it through procurement because they do those additional checks. They make sure that the person we're working with or the group we're working with falls under our terms and conditions. It adds that extra layer of protection to the university. So that's why the PO is likely to be where you want to start. And then, check request is there for other scenarios. So some tips we wanted to share regarding the submission. Again, it's going to be emailed to invoices@fullerton.edu. We want all of the backup, the audit trail, and your subject line on the email should say the DP number, which is listed on the top right-hand corner of the check request. So it should have that number and the vendor name. Double check your delegation of authority. We see that a lot where it comes through and the wrong person is signing, missing attachments. Make sure they're all there. And then for hospitality, especially now that we have the category, it's a little bit more clear. You're going to use that community relations most likely. So just make sure you have the hospitality justification form that's signed and approved attached to the check request. Okay, so with that, I think we're gonna get into the fun stuff now, which is a demo, hands-on demo where we get to see this from start to finish. So I'll go ahead and let Joe take over here.
Okay. So to get to, did I share the right screen? Do you see my portal? Okay. To get to the check request, you'll want to get to our website. Um, right now I'm in the accounting website. So I have our website bookmarked. If you don't have it bookmarked, I do suggest that you bookmark it, and I'll put it in the chat just in case if you don't have it. And what you're going to want to do is go down to accounts payable, head over to our services, and then you'll find check requests. It's one of these top tiles. And then you'll find the qualifying items list for check request. You can quickly scan what category you might be using. And then if you go to step 2, it's this top link here, the check request form, and some additional tidbits if you need to review that. So go ahead and click the check request form, and it takes you to this browser portal. I'm already logged in, and I've heard from folks that sometimes if they've done check request before and they do another one, it doesn't take it and they have to re-enter it. So if that's the case, whatever you normally browser that you normally use, I would suggest a different browser. So I'm actually going to do that because I was in here earlier and I don't want it to error out on me. So I'm going to take this. So right now I'm in Firefox, but I'm actually going to go over to Chrome because I don't use Chrome that much. You can also clear your cache. That's another solution if you're running into that particular problem. It has a lot to do with the browser cache. So go ahead and go into the check request form. It's going to ask you to log in. And then it'll gotta go to your Duo if you need to do that. It should send you to your Duo. This time it didn't for me. The vendor number, if you don't know it, that's okay. It's not a required field. And I do have an invoice that I'm just gonna put up here to the side, my second screen. I'm gonna put it, it's in my downloads. Oh, it's in my desktop. Sorry. I just need to open it. All right. That's the invoice I'll be using to enter my check request. I'm just moving it to the side. And you want to enter the check the vendor name. So the vendor name sometimes can be tricky because vendors have not DOAs, they have doing business as DBAs. And the remit to section, let me show you my invoice that I'm looking at. So you can see like their logo just says their name, but really the key here is the remit to, use that one. So they actually go by chore group. And you want to put in the vendor email. Sometimes you have to scan the invoices. They don't have everything all together, so you can see the top portion doesn't really have the vendor's email, so I got to scroll down, and that's their email there. So that's the one you want to do. Every invoice is different because every vendor does business a little bit differently. So you want to be aware of how your vendor does business and kind of get to know how they do things. If the vendor is we're paying back a faculty and staff, you want to click faculty and staff and put in their CWID or student. This case, it's a vendor and it's not a required field for vendors, so you won't need the CWID. Okay, you want to continue on. And here, the categories, if you haven't taken a look, they're all the same categories, but without the breakdown. So if you need to refer and read the definition of that categories list, refer to that. Uh, what I was purchasing here is actually a specialty toner for checks. So that's not here on this list. So what I'm going to have to do is pick the financial services department category. And what happens when we click that one, it just puts a second pair of eyes to make sure like, hey, this is okay. Uh, and Alberto actually ends up looking at those to make sure that those are okay to go through. Invoice number. If you don't have an invoice number, which sometimes happens, you can leave it blank, or what you can do if you want to track things on your own, um, you can always put in your own invoice number that you've put for your own self. Our general convention for accounts payable is we'll do something to do with the date. So sometimes you'll see like the date of this invoice was February 5th, 2025. So if you use that as an invoice number, that kind of gives you an idea of, some type of reference. But generally, if they have an invoice number, use the one that they've given you. The invoice date here, it does follow a date format. So it'll be a 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and 4-digit year. So if you put some other format, it'll kind of send you back to fix that. And for the invoice description, what you're going to want to do is tell us what the item is. Because the campus is so diverse, and our vendors are very diverse, supplying different products to us. We don't always know when accounts payable is looking at it. We're not really sure what it is that you purchased. So if you can give us a description, the invoice should have a description, put that description. But if it doesn't really make sense, like, Troy 9,940, Micker toner, maybe I don't really know what that is. Or you might feel like maybe accounts payable doesn't know what that is. You can add a little description here. So this is specialty toner for checks. And that just lets us know, okay, what is this? Sometimes we have to determine, is it a good or a service? And that helps us to determine that. Check handling instructions. So our policy is that we won't do any check pickups to vendors. It poses a little bit of security risk for us because people know that money is coming out of our department. And we don't really want folks to know that. But if you, as a department, want to pick up the check and then kind of hand that check to your vendor, that's pretty typical. So just let us know if you want to do that. So if it's somebody else that's picking up, just let us know who you want. And then you'll see that your information was already populated from your login. If you have a reviewer that needs to look at this before it gets to the other person, you can put that person here. As for the approver, my approver is Alberto. And like he said earlier, you can check OBIEE to see if your approver has approval authority within your college. And what you can do is you go into OBIEE, and let me go back from the beginning so you can see. So if you're in your portal, you can go to OBIEE BI dashboard. That takes you to this. Yours might look a little bit different. Right here, delegation of authorities, which you want to get into, and then DOA type check request. Put in at least your department ID that you're looking to get signed off on. And then I always like to change this to the operator name so I can see the name. And if I click apply for our department, accounts payable, our controller, Michael Al Young, he's able to sign. Alberto Contreras, he's able to sign. And all these folks, They used to be able to sign, but not anymore. So only these two can sign for my department. So I'm good to go with that. So I kind of go back to Chrome, put in his email. I think that's right, Alberto.
The Fullerton is spelled wrong.
Fullerton.
Yeah.
Account here. So good question about accounts is like, how do I know all these accounts? So if I go back to my dashboard, there's a good way to get to the most current ones. If you go to the dashboard portal, FIS, it'll take you to FIS resources, and then takes you to this finance kind of downloadable page, and then account. That's going to give you accounts. And then if you open up this Excel, you kind of have a list of accounts. It's asking me if I want to convert to an Excel sheet. And for this was kind of printing related, so I'm just going to look up print and 6602. Budget analysts and budget managers should be able to give you this information, but just in case you're kind of like, oh, what should the account be? That's a good way to look up the account. So that's the one I want. Uh, Same thing with the fund. I think fund is here if you need to look it up. Um, for this, it'd be the operating account. Oops. And then the department is your department. So hopefully you know that, or you know which department's going to be charged. Again, check with your approver, check with any business analysts or business process analysts to help you with that. And then once that's all set, this is just the form that helps you fill out the check request form. You want to click submit. And if I did it right, I should say submission confirmation. If it doesn't say this, it's that error that I was referencing before. Sometimes your cache is kind of making an error for you. Try a different browser or clear your cache. And then it says, after the check request has been approved in Adobe Sign, please use electronic submission to submit the AP check request with the audit trail. So now what's going to happen is this is going to send an email to me with the check request. The check request at this point has not gone anywhere. It's only gone to you, the requester. So if I go into here, review and sign, now I need to sign this myself. It's going to take me to the check request, and you can see it develop a number for you. And it's filled out these fields based on that browser app. And you're going to want to click here and sign, and then add the date. And then I guess I didn't, maybe it cut off Alberto's name, but sorry, Alberto.
That's okay.
And then click here with any attachments. So I did use an invoice, and my invoice does have a PO, but I'm just pretending like it didn't. And then any other documents that you might need to attach. So like it could be an email that shows some referencing. I'm just going to add another one to show you what happens. And now that's attached. Click the checkbox, agreeing to the consumer disclosure, and then click to sign. Okay, now a lot of times what happens is it'll show you this download a copy. Now, once again, this isn't submission yet. What's going to happen is now that you've signed it, it's going to the approver that you listed to sign. So if I look at the current copy right now, it'll show me, Alberto hasn't signed it yet. He just got it. When Alberto signs it, it'll go back to you as an email. And what's going to happen, it'll kind of give you that same link again, a review link. And what you're going to want to do is, if you notice here, if I scroll to the bottom, there's no audit trail. and we need that audit trail. So if you go into your Adobe sign, I happen to be logged in. It'll ask you to log in and the things that I have in progress. What you're going to want to do is go into your Adobe sign. It would be incompleted once it's signed. You go to your check request, click open, and now you can see, well, as soon as it loads, it's the whole thing. After signature, obviously, this haven't happened yet. All of your attachments would go down here. It's just my computer is slow right now, so it's loading. And what you're going to want to do is download PDF. And so when you do that, now you do have the full document. So a lot of times things get returned because they're signed, but there's no like digital backup for it. So that's what the audit trail really serves for us. We need to have that part. And so at this point, it's still not submitted yet. So we've got to go into our email and email this over to accounts payable. And that's just going to be invoices. If you get this popped up, I'm testing something right now, AP invoices. Please don't use that one. Invoices at fullerton.edu, it'll say CSUF invoices. And then if I go back to the website, it'll tell me what I'm supposed to put in the subject line. And for check requests, it's this. So I'll just go ahead and grab that. And I got to put in the DP number, which it wasn't that one. 240968. And my vendor name was Troy Group. And if you have any images here in your signature, you can delete those. That's because we have a little bit of automation going on in the background, downloads all the good stuff that you're sending to us. And it also downloads those images. So you don't have to, and you can just attach it. A lot of people do this. That might get confusing for you. So I do suggest if you're in your downloads, it just helps out everybody when you label it nicely. Oh, I have it open, so I gotta close it. So the name got changed, and then I can just put it right in my email. And like that, you don't have to say anything nice because all we're interested is the document, and then send that off. And then now it's submitted. From then, our student assistants are going to help us do some data entry, and then it'll get routed over to folks in our department that need to look at that for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
So that being said, we go. Now is a good time for any additional questions. We did have some in the chat already that have been answered. But just want to open it up again. Oh, Lynn has a question. The e-submissions used to have links that auto-populated an email pop-ups. Is that coming? Is that something that could come back? Users seem to like that feature.
Yeah, I can comment on that. The transition to the V5 websites, they don't want us doing those mail to links. They're called mail tos. They don't want us doing those mail to links anymore because they are not ADA friendly. So that's why we just list the emails now. And yeah, it was really convenient to auto-populate those things. We are working on transitioning everything going to just one inbox. So we're still doing some testing and internal training, but look forward to something more simpler than what we currently have. But we still won't be able to have those auto-populated email dialog boxes because they're just not ADA friendly. So unfortunately, can't do that.
Yes, excellent question. Thank you, Lynn. There was another question earlier about is if there's a link to see if there's if we can view what vendors have already been approved. There isn't, not yet anyway. We're working on something. There's something currently that I think we're looking at in terms of a dashboard, a dynamic view, if you will. Um, but if you don't know if the vendor is added or not, just go ahead and submit it. We'll see it, and we'll know. But if you're, working on a vendor you already do know, as you saw in the form, there's a spot, a blank there for you to be able to enter their number, so you can enter it in there if it's somebody you've worked with in the past or no, that's already on the system. Otherwise, you can also reach out. Either to AP or to Saul Rodriguez on the team. He is the main point of contact for vendor setups. Um, and then there was a question about the direct deposit form for employees. So I provided that link. But that being said, is there any additional questions we can answer for anybody? And while you think of any, I want to put up the QR code on the screen here so that you can hopefully take a survey for us and tell us how we did, or maybe if there's something you want to see. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. So if you can take a moment to fill that out. Um, Otherwise, I want to just double check if there's any new questions in the chat. No, okay. Well, again, if you have a question on if you have, enough or some service or product you're going to buy and you need a PO, reach out to contracts and procurement. Their email, I will put it in the chat just in case anybody needs it. You can reach out here for any PO related questions. For AP, it's ap@fullerton.edu. Um, and if nothing else, I just really want to thank everybody for stopping by today and listening to us.
I do have maybe a call out. If anybody out there has CFS, maybe use it to do requisitions. Can you shoot me a message? I'm curious to see something in the background for CFS for people who enter things for requisition. If anybody happens to be. If not, that's okay.
Oh, it looks like Lynn does.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks, Lynn. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks everyone. Have a good day.